Well, if you experience a really sharp pain in your stomach, it might well be an ulcer. Doctors used to think ulcers were caused by spicy foods. Dr. Aruni Mendis is the Manager of Scientific and Regulatory Affairs with Perth-based company TriMed and co-invented with Dr. Barry Marshall devices that help diagnose ulcers. Dr. Aruni, it's lovely to talk to you today.
Oh, pleasure to be there, Russell.
What does an ulcer actually look like?
Well, basically, it's a little hole in the skin of the stomach, which usually happens in what they call the antral area. It's not in the top bit, which is called the body of the stomach. It's where your intestine actually connects to your stomach. There's a little valve there, and in that region, it's called the antrum. That's the region that most of the ulcers happen to be, It's very common in that area. It's not very common in the other areas.
And how would you describe the pain that they cause?
Well, people describe it as the burning sensation, sometimes, epigastric pain. That's why they describe it. Most of the GPs, if they want to say this person's got a tummy pain, they say epigastric, which is just above, just above the stomach line. So it can be quite painful. I mean, just imagine putting alcohol on a wound, and if you've got a little chink in your stomach lining, which is the skin of the stomach, it's like putting alcohol on a skin wound, basically.
Yep.
Very, very
caustic. All right in the Westerns. Yeah.
And persons with an ulcer, even a teeny-weeny one, would not be able to tolerate that much alcohol.
How many people are affected by them?
Well, the prevalence in Australia is 30% of the population at any one specific time. But you go to Southeast Asia, Far East, Vietnam, and so on, the prevalence rate goes up to 80% or more.
Goodness. And
globally, it's the most common chronic infection in people. 50% of the world population is infected.
What should we do to prevent them then?
Well, it's basically following good hygiene. Basically, what happened is that people have evolved now from a formal eating routine, like sit at a table, wash your hands, spoon and fork, into a browsing mode of eating. You just pick something up from one of the food halls, just walk around eating it. And people don't wash their hands before they do that. I mean, the transmission of the bug is really through what they call fecal-oral contact. If you pick up a piece of something that's fallen on the floor and you put it in your mouth, you're asking for trouble, because Helicobacter hides away in little pockets of soil, and one thing about it is it doesn't like too much oxygen. So oxygen actually kills it, but it does live in the soil. And lots of people who have contact with soil in their day-to-day lives, like farmers and miners, they are the people who tend to get infected. And the agricultural communities in Eastern Europe, it's very common in areas such as Poland, Czechoslovakia, Yugoslavia, Greece. It's very common in Greece. And and even John Paul II actually did have a Helicobacter pylori, if you knew that.
Yeah, I didn't know that. So that's it, a Helicobacter pylori, which is a bacteria that is responsible for causing...
Precisely.
And there's a great story, a great local story. I mentioned Dr. Barry Marshall, your colleague at TriMed. He, together with Dr. Robin Warren, were responsible for discovering this, two Perth-based doctors.
Absolutely. I mean, this is a truly West Australian story, and the two icons, these two guys in 1981, basically, started the whole ball rolling. And Robin was the chief pathologist at Royal Perth Hospital at the time. This was in 1979. And his brief at the time was to look at biopsies that were coming in from the gastro ward, to looking at histology, what they call, if you want to spot a cancer in a stomach biopsy, you cut it and stain it with different dyes, and you can see it under the microscope if there's a cancer or anything like that. So Robin was actually finding these little kinky, curved bacteria in the biopsies, and he was a very shy sort of man. He told his colleagues, and none of them actually believed that, and they had a little bit of took the mickey out of him and said, I'm sure you got a contaminant there. And along came Dr. Marshall at the time, a young registrar, and heard about the story, and he thought, okay, right, there must be something there. Let's talk together and discuss a plan of action to sort it one way or the other. So what they decided was then to resect, cut some biopsies from people who had ulcers, and to try and grow the bug. They first looked at the bug was there. Can we grow this bug? So they took some agar plates. It's like jelly we mixed with blood, and that's why the bug actually likes that kind of nutrient, and it doesn't like too much oxygen. So you put the biopsy, you smear it on the so-called plate, which is jelly, and you put it in an oven at 37 degrees with a little bit of carbon dioxide and very little oxygen. It's a special environment. And, well, they tried growing the bug for about 6 or 7 months. Nothing grew. So one day they sort of put it away. It's 1981, just on Maundy Thursday, the day before Good Friday. They put some plates in the oven, went away for a jaunt with the Easter Bunny, and came back on Tuesday, and what they couldn't grow earlier had grown, in 4 days. The thing was, at the time, if any plate didn't have a growth in 2 days, the routine in the hospital, throw them away. There's nothing growing on that after 48 hours. That is negative. But this bug is very fastidious, and it takes a long time to grow, In fact, it took about 4 to 5 days to grow, and it's a serendipity, if you like, or a happy finding that this is a chance discovery, because they let the plates be in the oven for 6 days, and lo and behold, the bug had grown. And thereon, so he tried to get the bug into a mouse model, to try and see whether the bug can cause ulcers in mice. He tried this for a few months, nothing happened, and he thought to himself, oh, well, there's only one way to prove this. I'll consume some of the bugs myself, which is what Dr. Marshall actually did. And it's not laughable, but that's a very good way of proving the point, In microbiological terms, there's a thing called the Koch's postulate. Robert Koch is the guy who said, look, if you want to prove that something causes a disease, you've got to first isolate the bug, put it into a person who doesn't have the disease, prove that you get the disease. In fact, Barry, by drinking a culture of Helicobacter pylori, he drank about 10 to the 10 billion bugs, to speak. And on the 8th day, he was endoscoped. They took a biopsy and they found the bug has established itself. And Barry's wife actually says that he even had bad breath, because that's one of the side effects of having Helicobacter is that you have very bad breath. And of course, there's the dyspepsia, and you feel nauseous, you feel yuck, basically. And true enough, he then took some antibiotics and cured himself. And that's the basis of most of the treatments, even now, are what they call a triple therapy, which is 2 antibiotics and an acid-reducing agent, which, you see, the stomach is very acidic, and most of the, say, something like amoxicillin, although it will kill the bug, is not very effective when it's too acidic, because the drug itself is destroyed. So if you want to treat an infection in the stomach, what you do is you lower the acid content in the stomach. Then the antibiotics are active. Otherwise, you're just throwing it into the acid, where the amoxicillin or clarithromycin or standard drugs are destroyed. So you got to first give an acid-reducing agent and then throw in the antibiotics, and that way you can kill most of the bugs that cause ulcers.
Incredible story. Perth leading the world there. Dr.
Well,
Barry Marshall.
They've both been nominated for the Nobel Prize, I think twice, last year and the year before, I think. And of course, it's a truly West Australian story.
Fantastic. And Dr. Robin Warren there together. And you, Dr. Aruni Mendis, working with Barry Marshall as well. It's lovely to talk with you today. Thank you so much for your time.
No worries, Russell. Pleasure.